Hello everyone and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where last time we had a semi-successful mission. We went off to mine and probe Gilly. We may have killed 5 Kerbals in attempt number 1, but then for attempt number 2 we got there, we did the mining, forgot to put a battery on the damn thing so it couldn't do the little sensor report, but otherwise we've got a mining station out there. And today, what I'd really like to do is try and get this Gilly story mission, or Eve story mission, actually done. But to do that, we need to return from Kerbal from the surface of Eve, which is a bit of a problem since escaping Eve is a right pain in the ass. We also need to splash down and walk on the surface. So, bit awkward all in all, but we can see what we can achieve out of that. Now I'm just going to have a go at designing something that at least on paper should work. And the idea is going to be very similar to the last time I tried to get some design on paper to do this. Going to whack down a very simple small pod, because I do want to put a Kerbal down so we can get the other ones. And this is the smallest, lightest pod that is easy to fit stuff to. I'm going to put a experiment storage unit just so we can conveniently take any science that we get up with us. And then in case it goes wrong, this isn't actually going to be meant to be used. This is just a trying to avoid the death of a Kerbal. We've got a parachute and a heat shield on. So if we get up above Eve but not quite into orbit, hopefully the Kerbal won't die horribly. We'll just have to see. But otherwise, I'm going to have a go at trying to get this thing enough delta V to escape Eve. And then we'll just think about working on getting it to Eve in the first place. Okay, I have done a thing. I have no idea what I've done. This thing costs $500,000. It is huge. But in theory, asterisk, this should have sufficient delta V to get to Eve with the entire section that is within the fairing should be able to get to Eve intact. Just outside the fairing, it does use this last stage to get there. Should then be able to land. It's got the heat shield parachute on the very, very top there. It can then refuel itself. I've got miners here. I've got the ISU bay right at the top. It then jettisons this science section and the ISU section, so that flies off, leaving the much narrower top. And then all of this should be enough to get it back into Eve orbit, at least get this capsule at the very top into Eve orbit. This thing is an absolute monster. This may be the biggest thing I've ever put together in KSP. I have no idea if it's going to work. Fairly even chance I've made some horrible mistake. But I guess there's only one way to find out. We're going to put one pilot here. And I guess why not? Filner can be our one pilot. So our most experienced Kerbal survived a lot of things. Let's see if he can survive this thing. Incidentally, this hideous giant mess is called Hespheus. So the heavy, expensive, seriously fucking heavy Eve utility ship. I don't even know what we're doing now. Okay, there's a lot of wibbling and bumping there, and the central section settled. I think it snapped off. I'm going to recover, try designing that central section a little bit better. Okay, it was rather an expensive test. Let's see if we can get this working without those breaking off immediately. Because they're not on the ground, I just don't think they've got the strength to hold themselves up. That is fine-ish. Okay, that's hopefully holding it up a little bit better. I do miss the heavy launch clamps that you get in the mods. Let's see how this works out though. Okay. A little bit of wibbling, but nothing's collapsed this time. Unhappy with there being wibbling, but well, fuck it, I suppose. Let's try. Close your eyes and hope. Okay. Well, the actual launch was a lot smoother than I was expecting. Frame rates are chugging a bit with the number of parts I have. Okay, all my solid states are burnt out. This is going to be the second test, is whether this can decouple. And that decoupled lovely. Off they go, spiralling down. Okay, we're out of the atmosphere, we can dump the fairing. Okay, that stage flame out. Next stage. And Kerbal escape. Still 2000 delta V to go. That should be enough, might be not enough to fully circularize over Eve, but we do have the heat shield to help us. We can always do multiple heat shield re-entries. There we go. But the calculations do seem correct. When this stage is full, it should have approximately 10,000 delta V. Need 8,000 according to the chart to get off from Eve and into orbit. And I gave myself an extra 2,000 because I really doubt I'm going to have a nice smooth orbital injection. Of course, I have just realised what I've forgotten in this. I do not have ladders. Well, it's not the end of the world. May just not be able to walk on the surface. May send a Kerbal later on a one-way trip to Eve to do the walk on the surface part, and this can just be the return to Kerbal from orbit part. I've got something that should intercept just above Eve's atmosphere here, so we can see how this maneuver goes. I forgot to actually pick up the mission. It's just refreshed. It's refreshed without the walk on Eve part. Fortunately, I can't really do the splashdown on Eve on this mission, but I can certainly do that on another one. The slightly odd bright sides about this weird wacky design is that I have horrendous amounts of thrust. Normally I'm used to having really weak thrust for space stages, so several minutes of burn time. I only have 25 seconds for the complete Eve transfer because it has to lift off from Eve, so these things are huge. Oops, I overshot a little bit. It's the downside of having that much thrust. It's very easy to overshoot. Okay, we're within a 200-kilometer orbit. Okay, so 133 days till we arrive at Eve. We don't have enough delta V to completely break. We should have enough to at least mostly circularize. Just adjusted this for just above the atmosphere. I'm worried about how much this thing flexes despite all of the auto struts. Okay, that puts us within 100 kilometers. Okay, then I'm going to spend 900 delta V of our remaining 1200 delta V to mostly circularize the orbit, just so then when it comes to landing we don't have to bleed off that much speed going into the atmosphere. I do want to save a little bit to do the final deorbit burn, and I want a little bit more just so I can have maybe some control on re-entry. I don't know how controllable this thing is going to be as we re-enter. Okay, that's a nice, pretty circular orbit. Now we just have to see if we can actually land this damn thing. Okay, so we're going to start attempting our braking maneuver here. I want to just dip down a little bit, maybe to 70 kilometers. Don't know if that's enough to capture us. But we'll just have to see how this goes. Okay, we're going to inflate the heat shield. Going to leave our solar panels out until we're just about to re-enter. The comm array can go away though. I really want the solar panels out just for our only method of control is the RCS, sorry, the reaction control system, which now thinking about it is a bit of an oversight. This really could have used RCS. I want to save as much energy for that reaction control system as we can. Okay, retract both solar panels, turn us orbit, prograde, a surface prograde even. It's rolled us so the remaining solar panel is in the sun, so we don't seem to be bleeding off electric charge. That was one of my worries here. Kind of unhappily, we do have a temperature meter on the actual heat shield, and I don't know how much that can take. Heat shields, the temperature meters do slow down as they get higher and higher, so even though we're at about 60% heat now, it's not too bad, because that means it's also bleeding off, irradiating more heat, so and the rate of heat increase does decrease there. We are on our way back up, so that is good. Well, kind of. We've bled off a little bit of our orbital velocity. If this takes multiple attempts, and this takes multiple attempts, then I'm happy with that as opposed to crashing and burning. I'm just really nervous about going in too steeply here and overloading this, because the problem is we're not going to bleed off our orbital velocity that quickly. I've realised I've made a big mistake here. I should have emptied these upper stages. I really should have had these all empty so I can refill them on the planet. That would have made it a lot easier to get to Eve in the first place. It would have made it a lot easier to stop once we're there. For now, I think it's a bit awkward to... Well, but we can actually do that. That is interesting. I should have thought about this sooner. Okay, because now I can flip around, bleed off a load of orbital velocity. That's what I'll extend my solar panels, because that's just given us an extra 1000 delta V. We've still got fuel somewhere. Okay, we've got a much more circular orbit here. Tempted to use a little bit more, actually really circularize us before the orbital descent, so I'm gonna do that. Okay, so I'll push the prograde just above, sorry, the periapsis just above the atmosphere, because then I can push the apoapsis to about the same altitude. There we go. Then our final braking maneuver can be over here and drop us down to 64. And we should come down nicely in the day side here. Just gonna, oh no, our orientation is actually quite good. Permanent solar panel is in the sun. Yay, fingers crossed. Okay, we're re-entering the atmosphere way sooner than I had intended. Forgot about that with such a shallow descent. We're entering the atmosphere over here, getting some heating effects around the engines. They seem to be bleeding off now. This also means that we're going to re-enter on the night side, which is really not what I wanted. Currently we're holding with using very minimal power. We are definitely going to enter the atmosphere on this run. Depends where we're going to enter. Currently hoping we get over the land, otherwise I have no idea what's going to happen. Also really hope we manage to make it to the sun side so that I can get enough electric charge to be able to do things. I've tried a couple of times, but when I disabled my SAS, this is not aerodynamically stable. It would like to put its arse end into the prograde side, which is a bit unfortunate. Does look like we're going to make it over land at least, so that is one thing. Can see the aurora, so hopefully we're nearing the dawn. Our shield for now is doing a very, very good job though. It is managing to protect everything, including the engines, which with hindsight do stick out a little bit. But they seem to be nicely covered. Oh shit. No, we still had electrical power though, I don't know what failed. That is not good. Yes, we still had electrical power at the end there, we just didn't have enough authority to keep it pointing prograde, so it span out, and as soon as it span out, we lost it. Okay, not ideal, but Filner is alive, so that is something. I have no idea if we're ever going to be able to recover him. So what this thing desperately needs is us, yes. It just doesn't have the authority to continue to turn. Oh shit. Jettisoning the heat shield just smashed it against us. Okay. Well, it was an attempt. It was a failed attempt. Not sure if Filner is ever going to be coming home. It's decoupled the engine stage, it's not really needed. Well, as Filner here slowly drifts towards Eve's surface on a parachute that is far too big, we can take stock of what we've done. So I think in principle it kind of works. What we were missing there is RCS. The reaction control thrusters are just not enough. Could also probably use some more batteries so we're not worried about the electric charge so much. And we need to empty the fuel tanks next time. We don't need all of the fuel in those upper tanks. They can all get emptied, and that will make the launch a lot easier, although the launch was absolutely fine. The transfer easier, although again that was fine. And then it's just trying to persuade the thing to stay in the correct orientation during landing. But we'll have another crack at that next time. If you enjoyed this, please do leave a like, subscribe, comment, all really does help. And if you have any ideas of how we can improve this to actually survive next time, do let me know. Until then, I hope you enjoyed this. Hope to catch you in the next one. Until then, remember to be kind to yourself and everyone else. Cheers.